Today, privacy and security teams are leaner than ever, and yet they are dealing with more complex challenges, particularly around AI, that are just exploding. In this context, it's very, very easy to fall behind on your risk reviews, which basically means you're stuck with one of two options that are unpalatable. One, you become the department of no, you slow down the business and you deprive it from the fuel that it needs to grow and innovate in this environment. Or you're forced to accept risks that you're just not comfortable with in order to enable the business to proceed forward. There is a third option. And this is what I want to talk to you about in this video. We called it From Doc to Decision, and it's designed to help lean and fast teams be able to scale, conduct the reviews with the rigor that they expect, and yet move faster with the business. Hi, I am Jad Boutros. I'm the CEO and founder of TerraTrue. And TerraTrue is a risk management platform that we purposefully built for privacy, security, and AI risks. What sets us apart? A lot of risk platforms out there focus very much on this sort of the compliance checkbox and the documentation exercise. We took a very different approach with TerraTrue. We focused on risk reduction. We want to meaningfully equip privacy and security teams to reduce the risks with all the work that the business is doing, whether it's product feature launches, internal tools, vendors, marketing campaigns, data sharing, and all of that. So for us, compliance and documentation matters quite a bit, but we think of it as a byproduct of the risk reduction that we do. Our initial focus, our core focus is on risk reduction, and then the other things happen on their own. So as we have a very different approach to risk management, there are a few things we care about offering our customers. We want them to be proactive. We want customers to be able to bring in privacy and security teams earlier in the development process when their feedback is actionable, so that they can work with the business in a lockstep way and not slow down the business. The worst time to start a review is usually a day before the product is due to launch. And what we focus on with TerraTrue is how do we bring in that collaboration and that review to start as early as possible in the development lifecycle. The other part we care a lot about is supporting a business-friendly risk program, because the business shouldn't think of privacy and security as a burden, as a tax to them. It should be easy, it should be graceful, and it should enable and foster collaboration across these teams. So how can we remove as many obstacles to adoption as possible? And then the third, and even more important in today's world, the risk program has to be scalable. So we spend a lot of energy thinking through how do we help our customers scale their risk program. So what is From Doc to Decision? This effort that is currently in progress, through which we're super excited about. It's really powerful functionality that simply wasn't possible even a year ago. Leveraging the latest advances in AI and data intelligence, we are focused in this effort to streamline the risk process. And so this means tackling every stage of the risk review and making sure that that stage is fast, consistent, as automated as possible, and enable you to conduct your reviews with higher scale, and helping the business more accordingly, because now they're faster to launch and innovate their products. And so the way we think about it is across the three big stages of a review process: the discoverability stage, the triaging stage, and then the completion of assessment stage and reporting of findings. So what we want to talk about, we're going to break it down in those three different stages and share more about what we're doing for each one of them to make them better and more efficient. Let's start with the discoverability stage. TerraTrue already supports a large number of integrations meant to bring in the work from wherever teams are currently doing their work into TerraTrue in an automated way. So for example, one of our most popular integrations is Jira. It's a very rich, powerful integration that is meant to pull in development activities that are ongoing and launch review processes for each one of them. But the thing is, we want to focus even more on being proactive, because every day where the review hasn't started, but the business is developing and moving forward, is a day lost. And it's very hard to make up for it. So the way we're approaching this problem is, how can we get even earlier in the process, before a Jira ticket may be even filed? And that led us to thinking about integrations with document systems. Typically, when a product or a feature is being designed, the product and engineering team will write a design doc. And then that design doc in turn feeds actual UI, UX designs, feeds technical specs, feeds other sort of byproduct work from this. But it always starts with a design document. And the way we think about it at TerraTrue is, how can we tap in directly to those document systems? And the advantage there is, we meet the developers where they work. We start review processes much earlier when the design doc is written, and we save the business maybe days or even weeks before a Jira ticket is set up and the work is actually scheduled to take effect. And so we already built a Notion integration. We're almost wrapping up a Google Docs integration, and we're going to tackle Confluence next. And we're making the review, launching a review incredibly fast. So with Notion, the developer just needs to check off a check mark. With Google Docs, they just need to click one button, and then the magic happens. TerraTrue automatically knows that this document needs to be reviewed. It receives the document from your document system. It analyzes it with its AI and data intelligence, and we'll talk more about that. And then it comes back to the developer with immediate feedback. And the feedback could be, you're good to go. You don't need any human in the loop. No review is really needed. Your feature is not introducing any significant risks. Please proceed. And you get that feedback immediately. Or in less common cases, you get feedback, wait a minute, you're working on something that is particularly sensitive. The review is going to take longer. And then you're equipped immediately to know that and to brace for it and to handle it in the best way possible. So you're avoiding surprises. You're not waiting there for weeks and weeks before you even know, when is the review going to start? Is it needed? How long it's going to take? You'll get that feedback instantly. So that brings us, so now that we've taken this work into TerraTrue automatically earlier in the process, the next step is to triage those reviews, because privacy and security teams get easily overwhelmed with all the work that is coming to them from the business. They usually only have time to review a few of the many reviews that are coming in at the same time. And so one key aspect that they fight with is, how do they determine which reviews need the work and which reviews don't meet that risk bar and therefore don't require their input. So that's, as you can imagine, it's a process that seems simple, but that to actually make that determination, those reviewers are spending a lot of time analyzing, what is this document about? How does it tie into previous work? What can we infer about the risks that are being introduced? And all of that takes time and effort and energy. And TerraTrue is enabling organizations to automate all of that. Our goal is to immediately give actionable feedback to the reviewer about all the risks that may be present with the document or absent, and explain to them or provide them with a risk severity rating that helps them automatically either close the review as not needed or flag it for more attention, in which case we're helping those teams identify the few reviews that warrant their time and effort. So then the question becomes, how do we determine what needs a review and what doesn't? And this is where we leverage both latest capabilities in AI, understanding of information, but also the state of your review program. What was reviewed before? How do you think of risks across the myriad of taxonomies that TerraTrue supports? And based on that, we action the review and the risk rating that it comes with. And so a few things we look at. One of them is the taxonomy. So what types of data are you using in this feature? what are you using it for? What are the goals of the efforts that you're working on? But also, how do you intend to use the data that you're collecting? And all of this out of the box, TerraTrue maps to specific risk ratings according to all the different privacy, security, and AI regulations around the world. But also, we make it configurable by customers. So customers can go in and say, well, I don't agree with the risk rating here. To me, this is more important. And we leverage those signals when we assign a risk to a review. We also look at other characteristics. Is this work novel? Is it the first time that the company is doing it? Or is it iterative over previous features and previous iterations of that feature? You can imagine that those are treated somewhat differently. Generally, for novel work, you want to spend the time and rigor to think about it as holistically as possible and identify areas to investigate more deeply. But when it's iterative work, let's say it is performance refactoring or potentially expansion in a new geography, those focus the review or possibly eliminate it altogether. So not only are we assigning a risk, but we're also helping you understand the scope of what you need to be reviewing. We also look at it from a regulatory lens perspective. If the feature involves children's data, for example, or it's transferring data to a region around the world that you consider high risk, those automatically dictate certain types of assessments and review scrutiny. And we share that information with you up front so you can make those decisions. And the last one that also we're very excited about is really contextual intelligence. So again, the power of using a dedicated review tool like TerraTrue is that we have the whole history of reviews you've done in your organization. And as a result of that, we can better understand what about this current work is novel versus things you've already looked at, approved, and allowed. And also, how does it tie into new assessments you need to do, new DPIAs or LIAs, potentially updates to your ROPA tables. All of that we understand just based on looking at the history of reviews. And if novel work is needed, then a review is warranted. But if you already have in your library all of these done already and they don't need any change, then you can also fast forward through the review process. So our goal is to take all of these signals automatically from your documents and previous reviews and surface to your reviewer that summarization and that context that then helps them determine how to proceed with that review. And now that you've triaged the review, you know about it, you've looked at it, you've reviewed it, the third stage is auto-completing all the assessments that you need to perform. This is where we start first with a focus on privacy, and then we're going to leverage the same mechanisms to support all the other use cases on TerraTrue. And so the questions become, you need a new DPIA, a data protection impact assessment, or a legitimate interest assessment, an LIA, a transfer assessment, any sort of privacy assessment that you need to do for this review. We help you by streamlining it, by pre-populating it with information that we understand from this launch, and we speed up your process. This is generally a very complex task. It's daunting. It requires a lot of work, filling out a lot of different forms, and TerraTrue just speeds you through it by pre-populating as much of those questions and considerations and trade-offs so you don't have to spend the time thinking about them, and also achieve higher consistency as part of that process. All right, so now we've tackled the three key stages of the life of a review, and we've accelerated each one of those stages. We've given you more understanding of what the business is doing at any moment in time, but without any of the dread, because we automatically filter out the things you shouldn't bother with your time and effort. And what it comes down to is the realization that running a risk program is very complex and challenging. And ultimately, you have to make the decision, can you be an engine of growth for your business or a giant tax to it instead? We recognize that teams are very lean today, and we want to support you in achieving those goals, creating those right security and privacy postures in your organization, but do that without overburdening yourself and your team and without overburdening the business. And so we hope you like the way we're approaching this problem, and we'd love to hear from you. If you have any feedback, whether this applies to your work, whether it resonates with you, or whether you've already done all of these in your own ways, and we'd love to hear about that, how that happened, and how well you think that's faring. So if you have any feedback or comments, please find me on LinkedIn or respond to our YouTube channel. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you for joining and listening to this video.